Welcome to GS Media. I'm JL Smith. Every day, a renowned grandmaster pianist would be found in his studio practicing for hours. As he practiced, he would occasionally see a dirty, unkept young man through his studio window. The young man wasn't begging. He would just sit on the curb with his back against a lamppost for hours. Curiosity eventually overcame the pianist, and he left his studio to speak to the young man. Of course, the pianist was moved when he learned that the young boy was orphaned and lived day to day with whatever he could scrounge from trash cans and slept wherever the streets provided. Yet what moved the pianist to near tears was when the young man explained the only enjoyment he had in life was sitting across the street hearing the beautiful music coming from the studio. With this revelation, the pianist invited the young man into the studio for a private concert. You can only imagine the excitement of the young man when he was invited to sit next to the pianist and learn a few of the notes and chords. The pianist was impressed with how quick the boy picked up playing the piano and could tell the boy was given the gift of music. Having no family and with plenty of time on his hands, the grandmaster decided to make the boy an offer. If he would clean the studio every day, to include washing the window and polishing the piano, in exchange for the labor, the boy could live in the studio's extra room and partake of the food that the pianist would bring from home. Without a doubt, the boy jumped on the opportunity and agreed to the terms. The pianist then sweetened the deal. If the boy did all the chores without grumbling, and after proving himself to be consistent in his duties for the next 2 weeks, the pianist would begin to give him free lessons. You could have knocked the boy over with a feather. It was answered prayers. Time flies when you're having fun, and both the student and the teacher were not just having fun, they were both having exhilarating fun. Before they knew it, 2 years had passed, and the young man was now an excellent piano player. It was at this point that the pianist explained to the boy that he was a widower. With tears in his eyes, he told how his wife and baby boy died during childbirth, and to cope with the pain, he turned to the music of the piano. With no one to carry on his name and legacy, he asked the boy if he could adopt him and give him his name. No one can say for sure how long the pair cried and embraced one another. But one thing we do know, the boy said yes. The father spent the next few years pouring not just his heart and soul, but his entire life into raising his son to be a man, as well as a master of the piano. And to his joy and pride, his son had grown into a real gentleman about town, and near the same caliber as his father when it came to tickling the ivory. Sitting in the studio, the father told his son there was nothing else he could teach him, and thus it was time to pass the mantle. Utilizing his fame and connections, the father arranged for the son to perform his first concert in front of the county's elite, including the mayor and the governor. Word began to spread of his musical prowess. Every day, someone would tell him what a great player he was and ask for his autograph. Though the public had never heard him play a single note, he was famous throughout the county. The son determined he would honor his father and extol his love for the man who saved his life and gave meaning and purpose to his existence. He even snuck off to another studio so he could write a special song to surprise his father. As the event grew closer, the young man began rehearsing at the concert hall to ensure the sound and lighting would be perfect. Every practice, it seemed more and more folks would stop what they were doing and give a listen. The janitors, technicians, even the office staff, and anybody else who happened to be in the hall would all make their way into the auditorium just to listen. The curator of the music hall and the in-house music director lit his imagination when they said that after the concert, his name would now be on the marquee in London, Paris, Rome, and around the world. Recognizing that he was on the cusp of greatness, his first concert was no longer about honoring his father. Instead, his thoughts began to swirl, fantasizing over the cheers, standing ovation, and accolades that would soon be thrust upon him. Not just thoughts, his attitude also swirled, right down the drain. He became more demanding towards the light and sound techs, ordered that the auditorium be emptied of gawkers, required complete silence when practicing on stage, A savant such as himself would not tolerate any distractions. Talk began to spread, whispers actually, that the once mild protege had grown conceited and overbearing from consuming far too many of his own headlines. The night of the recital came, and the hall was packed with townfolks and dignitaries. Anticipation hung heavily over everyone in the music hall, and not heavier than that of the young pianist. Peeking from behind the curtain, he saw his father sitting in the very center seat of the front row, being congratulated on behalf of his son's accomplishments. When the time came and he stepped on stage to great applause, it was like an out-of-body experience. Bowing slightly to the crowd, he took his seat at the piano. The house lights went out, and after a brief second, a popping sound was heard as the spotlight now streamed its bright beam of light directly onto the young man. Alone, in the center of the tension, just as he wanted, he was horrified. His mind was blank, his hands froze, stomach churning. He wanted to get up and run away, but he could not stand. He could sense just how uncomfortable the audience became, and his ears picked up on the whispering that soon turned to snickers and low-level murmuring. The audience may have turned on him, but he could see the great love and concern upon his father's face. It felt like an eternity, but the young man found the energy to motion for the music director and whispered in his ear. The director hurriedly exited the stage, and after a few seconds, the spotlight went off. And when it came back on, it was shining directly onto the young man's father. The young pianist began pouring out his heart, telling the story of the master pianist who took him in, clothing and feeding him, later to adopt him, and then sacrificed his own career, teaching him that love is the greatest inspiration for beautiful music. The young man began playing the special song he had created for his father without even looking at the music, which was a good thing, because the tears flowing down his face prevented him from seeing anything. It was also a good thing that we hear music with our ears and our heart, because no one in the audience could see the stage any longer, from the tears that streamed down their face as well. There's a fine line between success and failure, and it's a straight line from confidence to hubris. Somewhere in the middle of these dichotomies, we find two kinds of people. The first are those who hitch a free ride on your wave of success. These folks who will tell you that you can do no wrong, and the ride will last forever. So get what you can and buy what you want. All the while, they take full advantage of every opportunity to stuff their pockets along the way. And if everything falls apart, they will disappear from you and be the first to write the book or make the movie about your downfall. The other group of individuals could care less about your fame and fortune, not because they're heartless, but because they care far more about you, the person, than any accomplishments. These individuals will tell you to slow down when your career is running at breakneck speed. When you are on top, they remind you where you came from, and that being the bottom. And if it all crashes, they will not pick over the carcass. They will pick up the pieces. Not many of us will ever be a grandmaster pianist, and that doesn't matter. Whatever accomplishment we are seeking, be it a high school graduation, a new business, singing the next hit, or even landing on Mars, you will find both types of people in your life. To prevent you from going the way of the young pianist, and to assist you in gravitating towards those who care for you, we offer today's grain of sugar as a ready recall reminder. Talent is from God. Fame is from man. Arrogance is from self. Love is from heaven. Got a story about someone who loved you from heaven and melted away your arrogance? If it's not too painful, tell us about it in the comments below and give them the spotlight they deserve. Thanks for stopping by. We could really use your support, so will you please like, subscribe, and share with others? Or maybe become a Colony member by joining us on Patreon or snatch up some merch from our website. Links are pinned below. Once again, thanks for tuning in to Grains of Sugar. I've been your host, JL Smith.